Hello, everyone listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. It's another episode of NRG Insights. For those that don't know, NRG Insights is a podcast into the insights and of industry leaders within the mortgage market. So anyone that's got something interesting to say, we'd love to have a chat with them and generally add some value to the market. So on that, we've got Richard Deacon with us today, who is the MD of Sales at Octane Capital. So thanks for joining me, Rich.
No worries. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. You're the second one from Octane, aren't you? So you get, third one, you get hat-trick ball. So we can just start. Talk to me about your financial services journey to how you got to where you are now, Octane.
Yeah, so started out in the black and white days of 1997, I think it was, working for a American bank, HFC Bank, which for those with long memories will recall that it's a unsecured and secured loans business. It was very much the stack 'em high, sell 'em expensive model. I started out as a customer account manager, underwriting loans, personal loans of sort of £1,000 up to £15,000 on the secured side of things. Did okay, became branch manager at several branches in and around London. Moved from HFC Bank into, one would suspect, a proper bank, so a retail bank, to Santander, and that was quite interesting because it was when, again, for those with a black and white memory, Santander used to be called Abbey National. Then they changed the course to Abbey, and I was there at the time when it was being bought out by Santander. So I was there from the transitional phase from Abbey to Santander. Initially as branch manager, but then moved on to sales manager, looking after the mortgage side of things, also the investments and protection, stuff like that. 2006, I think this was, I joined Mr. Rob Jupp, industry legend and quite literally giant, at Personal Touch Packaging in sunny Southend. So going from sort of the banky retail side of it into more of the specialist side of it. So at that time it was obviously self-cert. So we did
And
a
what
whole
could go wrong with that? 2006 self-cert. It's all going along.
I still maintain to this day that one of the most popular products from it was DB Mortgages, Infinity, Mortgage Express. They had a 95% self-cert any. So 95% self-cert is obvious, but the any was any CCJs and any defaults. So you could have the worst credit history in the world, and you could certify your income for 95%. As you're quite right to say, what could go wrong?
Yeah. 2008.
Well, yeah, so 2008 did indeed go wrong for a lot of people, and I was working with Rob, and I've just sort of, funny enough, the guy Andrew Bloom, who I went to work for 13, 14 years, he came in to give us a presentation on bridging finance at Personal Touch Packaging.
Yeah,
and I remember thinking, I don't really know much about this bridging game, and as is often the way with these things, the next call that he got was from me in 2008, when it was so obvious that the packaging world, if you will, the specialist distributor world, and that self-cert world was going to go under.
Yeah.
So I joined Andrew in, funnily enough, on my birthday, which is in a couple of days' time, in 2008. Very small office, serviced office in Lombard Street in town. There's four of us to start with, and my remit, if you will, was to go out to see brokers and sell the virtues of bridging finance. I look back now, and it was quite an interesting gig, because the guys and girls that I went out to see were the people I used to go out and see at Personal Touch Packaging. But back then, I was talking about buy-to-let loans, mortgages, obviously self-cert stuff. Now I was going in with this alternative product, a product that was pretty specialist, specialist now, but it's even more specialist back in the day, where you could leverage cash against assets that were illiquid customers, and this was something that was really kind of eye-opening to me because, you know, from a standing start, I went out and in the first sort of year, I beat my target, and years sort of 2, 3, 4, you know, we hired more people. I got promoted to sales director at Masthaven. We became FCA regulated in 2010, I think it was, 2011. Moved, moved, grew. And then Andrew came up with this wacky idea of obtaining a banking license and becoming Masthaven Bank, which we did, I think it was 2016 now, which was wonderful. And at the peak, before it didn't go so well, there was 250 of us in Soho, in London. I had a team of about 12, I think, 15, something like that. And we were going great guns. You know, we were doing regulated bridging, non-reg bridging, development finance, commercial. So it's a real team, a real growth plan. And finally, when Masthaven shut the doors 2 or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I think, it was really sad. You know, I was generally sad because I've been there for so long.
In that short space of time as well, hadn't it? It wasn't like it was it wasn't a struggle all the way through, was it?
No. We were, as I say, we were going great guns and lending, 20, 30 million a month just on the short term side of things, which is pretty decent. You know, it's a good level of business. But it was the investment that we required to take us to the next level didn't happen. So it was decided to shut the doors, which, as I say, I was there 13 years, 14 years, built up a really good team.
Yeah.
Built up a good name in the marketplace for Masthaven, and I sort of needed to go somewhere else. And Octane, Jonathan and I often laugh because over the years, Jonathan and I have had a couple of coffees where he sort of said, "How's it going?" and would you be interested in joining and stuff. And I've always respected and admired Jonathan. Incredibly intelligent guy. He's built obviously wonderful businesses similar to the Masthaven journey. I mean, that became a bank, but it was originally Drawbridge, renamed, and sort of drew a line in the sand, and 7 years ago started Octane Capital. And again, funnily enough, with a lot of the guys that he started Drawbridge and Dragonfly with and worked with at Octopus, and a lot of them have been with him through this journey for all this time. So it's a really, for me, it's a good testament to not only the business is successful, but the man, if that makes sense. So who's behind it?
And is that a big deciding
who's that
factor?
person controlling it and going?
Is that a big deciding factor when you're looking at new businesses, especially at kind of the top end of the market, like in that kind of sales structure? Is it a big thing that you understand the man as well, or the person at the top and their kind of vision as well as just the business?
For me, it is, yeah. I mean, the business that I work in and have worked in for 20, 30 years is sales. And the saying that I often champion is people buy from people. So you might have, the best products in the world, the best service in the world, but if you haven't got someone at that front end on a face-to-face basis, you're not going to have that relationship. Certainly in the smaller markets that we're operating in, when you get to your big banks, your Santanders, your Barclays, your HSBCs, etc., then it is about process and pricing and stuff like that. But when you're quite a small company, I mean, we've got 31, 32 people at Octane. As I say, when I started at Masthaven, there was 4 of us, and we grew big, but still the sales function and the credit function was still less than 40 people. You've really got to go and build those relationships, because the industry we work in, the brokers, the specialist brokers, the distributors, the packagers, the networks, they're all, wanting the best for their customer, but then it's the relationship. So whether it's the relationship with you as a business to get the deal through, whether it's a relationship with the business to sometimes ask for a favour, to put your case at the top of a pile, for example, or can we get terms out at 7 o'clock at night, for example, which if you go to a faceless relationship that you might have with someone, you're not going to get that back. But with Octane, certainly, it's very much you can have that because it is instilled from the top right the way down to the most junior person in the business. And that's something that I like about the smaller businesses as well, because everyone cares, number one, but everyone is part of the business. It's part of the bigger picture. So we do everything together. We do, support each other on a day-to-day basis and cover each other's back, which I think is really important, because you're not just the man at the top or the woman at the top. You're not just the BDM going out to see someone on, a Monday at whatever it is, 11 o'clock. You are the person who then does the AIPs. You are the person that then looks at the deal when it comes in, the initial underwrite, instructing valuers and solicitors. It's really, many cogs to the business, and they're all equally as important as one another.
And interesting enough, obviously you've built a great team now. I'm not blowing smoke, but just it is known for having a good team. You've got a good bunch there. I mean, what do you look for those guys? What are the kind of the traits that separate them? Do you think from? I mean, you do have to separate yourself, right? There's 240 odd short-term lenders, so to get to the top of that pile, what is it do you think that your guys do that kind of separates them? Obviously, we could talk about product all day long, but you're right, it's something else. What do you think that is? What do you think the special traits are?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think there's many aspects to it, but I would suggest that the main one for me is the desire.
Yeah.
It's wanting to do it. As we've talked, Marcus, about interviewing people and stuff, and anyone can say face to face or on Teams or whatever that, oh, I want to go out and work, I want to do this, I want to do that, but for me, it's something in there. It's something in your sort of heart and in your mind that says, I want to go out, I want to see people, I want to extol the virtues of Octane, and I want to ask for their business. Yeah. And it's those three fundamental things that you obviously can teach someone. But if they get up on a Monday morning, for example, and think, do you know what, I can't be bothered today, or I'll work from home, or I'll put some spurious thing in the diary that means that I don't have to go out and travel, an hour and a half around the M25 and meet these guys, and then travel an hour and a half back, and then go and see someone else. Because the BDM role, the sales role in our industry is tough, right? It's certainly not Monday to Friday. A lot of the guys do work at weekends, but it's certainly not 9 to 5. So there's a lot of early starts, there's a lot of late finishes, there's a lot of overnight stays. And while someone can say that they want it, you've got to really want it in there. Yeah. And providing you can see the reward at the end of it, so whatever the bonus structure is or the pay structure, for me, the getting that desire out of someone is you've got to get to know them. And I don't mean getting to know their sort of work style and their work culture and how they are. Some people are aggressive, some are passive, some ask open questions, closed questions, some do it from a book, some are very open, and some are very relationship. But it's what drives them, what's their real modus operandi, and until you get to know someone, you can't ever fathom that out. And again, for me, it's the one-to-ones, it's the sort of water cooler chats, if you will. It's the reviews at the end of the month and the end of the quarter and the end of the year, to go through the numbers and go, look, you've done really well. Why do you think you've done really well? You've not done so well. Why do you think you've not done so well? What is it that you need? At the end of every meeting, I ask, do you need anything from me? And whether that's, to open doors for a couple of people, whether it's to sort of come along because some of the guys may have some difficult questions that they're not comfortable answering. Whether it's a case of they don't feel comfortable on a one-to-one basis, but they're fine in front of 30 people, or the other way round, you've got to sort of sometimes put your arm around someone and go, look, I'll come out with you for the day because I believe in you, and I want to believe in you, and I want to get to know you better and how you work. So relationships both ways, I think, is the key for me.
And we've genuinely talked about it in the past as well, especially about the one-to-one things. I think I could learn something from that because I think last time we spoke, I was going through my one-to-ones, and obviously it's important to go through facts and figures stuff, but you very much take it down to the human level, don't you? Of like, what's good, what's bad, how are you? You know, how's your life? Why are you looking for it? I think that's why you've got that. You kind of you understand their whys. I don't sound cheesy and say your whys, but you know what I mean. Like you understand outside of just that, you know, just out of wanting to earn commission, you understand their lives.
And I think you've got to, because if someone doesn't realise why you're angry, upset, tired, energised, really up for it or not, or a bit in your shell, unless you find out the why, you as a manager, you can't then put on strings to get them going again. Because all you want to do as a manager of people is have your team performing at the highest level all the time, right? Now, you know, using a football analogy, if we may, not every player on every team plays his best game every week. That's a fact, right? You know, some people have a really poor game and they're fit, you know, physically fit, but why aren't they having the best game of their lives? And this is something that I'm very much conscious that I want to know, I need to know to get the best out of my team. And, you know, we're working with real people, you know, my team are of an age, I've got people from their 30s, early 30s into the mid 50s. So it's a big, broad spectrum of age, and a big, broad spectrum of wives, girlfriends, husbands, kids, dogs, holidays, car breakdowns, house moves.
Isn't all of those?
It's the whole spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Unless you know, can just sort of empathise with people as well. You know, I'm lucky enough to be quite old, so I've been through a bit in my life as well. So I've been through, you know, kids and homes and wives and ex-wives and, you know, whatever else.
Ups and
So
downs. Speaking of that, actually, as well, Rich, obviously you've been through good markets and bad markets as well.
Been all over the place.
So you've been through some good markets and bad markets.
Sorry, mate, go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying you've been through some good markets, bad markets. You've dealt with both, so it must be easier to kind of empathise with people when it's tough, and also, I mean, at the same time, people need to be motivated as well, right? You can't be nicey with everything, but you've having that experience to go, look, this will change, you know, this will pass, or if it's good, you know, about keep rolling. It does it. The experience that you pick up over the years, just not just on a personal level, but also on a market level, must help the team.
Yeah, it is. You know, I've known high interest rates, I've known zero interest rates, I've known a buoyant housing market and a you know, car crash of a housing market and all in between. And I think it is a case of the external stuff that we can't manage, like interest rates, housing markets, etc. I think that, you know, someone says it's noise. A lot of it is noise that, as I say, we, other than putting an X in the box once every 4 years, we can't really do too much about it. But then it is a case of what do you do about it? So if the press and the media are saying, you know, interest rates are sky high, you know, like sort of early last year and 2022, when rates were, you know, pretty much month on month or meeting on meeting going up, a lot of guys were saying, you know, oh, where are they going to stop? The interest rates are too high. People aren't looking to borrow because the rates are too high. And you think, right, okay, people will always want to buy and sell houses. People will always want to move. People will always want to refurbish their homes. People will generally sometimes do just sit on their hands and think, oh, it might get better in 6 months, a year's time. But what are you doing about it? So for me, it's, are you getting out in front of enough people to tell them that the last deal we had was a guy who, wanted to buy a property because it was a distressed sale, add value to it by turning it into a 6-bed HMO, because he's then going to use that as his income to live on, and then he wants to do it again and again. So you tell people the success stories that you've had as a lender, and listen, it might be just your last inquiry that you had in the car while you're driving up to see this last appointment, where you go, say it was an HMO conversion, for example. Oh, we've got loads of HMO conversions. Because it's so fresh in your memory, you can talk about it passionately to someone with insight and clarity that means that that person you're talking to thinks, oh, wow, well, if so-and-so is getting these inquiries, why can't I get them? How are they getting them? And it's educating the broker that you're seeing how this person has got that inquiry. And, might be as simple as sending out an email shot. It might be even more simple than that, about talking to people on the phone or face to face about deals that you're seeing. So the fact that you've seen a deal, you've told this broker that you've seen this deal, well, that broker can then tell his next client or his next introducing broker to them about what deals that they're seeing. And it just brings that sort of collective togetherness about there is business being done in the market. And, when it is tough, it's tough. It's not bones about it. In the Liz Truss period, it was bloody hard, right? Because there was uncertainty. And I think,
Important thing, sorry to interrupt you, is that the most important things, like you say, with the Liz Truss debacle that it was? Is it, like you just said then, about more about speaking to your broker? You're not going to get deals in every day, but just about kind of the reassurance type piece with brokers that, again, much the same you have to do with your own team. Like, it is going to get better, and just educating them on that. Is that been a big part of it?
I think that's one of the biggest parts, Marcus, to be honest, is the education. And listen, you might be talking to, someone my age who's been in the game 20 years as a broker, and they, you think they know every trick in the book and have seen every lender and have seen every type of inquiry. But what struck me, and it was only recently actually, myself and a colleague, we went out to see a long-standing broker of our very, very well-known broker in our industry, and it was, the usual, hugs and high fives and how are you, and bit of football chat, bit of golf chat, etc. And we sat down and we sort of came to a bit of a lull in conversation, natural lull. And then he sort of said to me and my colleague, he says, do you know what, guys, I don't actually know what you do. Because we said, well, how's business? Oh, I'm really busy, blah, blah. And I sort of said, well, why haven't we seen much from you then? And it sort of paused, and he went, I don't really know what you guys do. So, and we're all old enough and ugly enough to know each other for years. We've got loads of shared experiences. The relationship is really strong. But unless you tell someone what you're doing, they don't know. And we laughed and said, bloody hell, we've known each other all this time, and I just think you're not getting our sort of business. And he said, we are getting your type of business. It's just that I didn't know that was your bag. So,
You know what? I mean, you're preaching to the choir of that, because I've got so many industry friends, and because you've just been around for a long time, we're all around each other. You're a seller, and then when they say, "I didn't know you did that," I mean, that's on me, right? Because that's my job to make sure everyone knows the proposition. You just you do fall into that little bit of a safety blanket or security that you just assume everyone knows what you do all the time. And actually, you have to refresh people constantly, don't you? Even with us, like whether it's administrators or anything, oh, I didn't know you did that. Like, we recruit for everyone, but yet they'll go, oh, I just assumed you did X, Y, Z because that's what you did for me last time.
Yeah, and that's so key, because if you see, let's say, if you've got a relationship, a lot of the guys have worked for Octane for 3, 4, 5, 6 years plus, and if they've had relationships with people for that time, they'll automatically assume they know what we do. So this is why I do a thing every now and again where I go through a list of their sort of top brokers or top however many brokers, and so when was the last time you saw so and so? When was the last time you saw so and so? Because our product range is changing, not constantly, but every sort of half year or quarter. There's a little tweak, there's a little appetite change. There's a little product criteria change. Obviously, recently we've gone out with 75%, which is great, and we're telling everyone about it, and it's such an easy in to go and see people, right? But then it's, what else do we do? Do you know? I often joke that don't forget to tell people we actually do bridging finance because we're known as a refurb lender or a developer exit lender. We've started dipping our toe into the ground up development market. We are very, very strong on the refurb side and the reconfiguration and remodeling of property.
Like you say, everyone knows that bit. You've always got that core product that people know.
Everyone knows that.
You got to bang your drum about everything you do, right?
Let's talk about new bridging. I look at the figures, and when the figures are great, we might have. We had a record month for AIPs in August last month, and you go through a day, you sent out, I think it was 22 sets of credit back terms in one day was one of the records. And you look at it, and it's refurb, and you think, gosh, we do bridging as well, and it's letting people know what you do, even though you know them all the time. And going back to what I said a moment ago, just throw in an inquiry that you've got recently and say to them, look, do you actually get much auction? People don't really look at us for auction purchases, for example, but you think, we'll do auction purchases, 28 days completion. Generally it's a tired property that needs a refurb anyway, but even if it isn't, we can still do that. So it's the constant education. And funny enough, Adam Tyler at FIBA, and obviously the NACFB years ago before that, he sort of bangs on about me and education. And for me, that's what it is, because if you don't tell people what you do as a lender, but if you don't tell people what bridging finance can do or short-term finance can do and how it can help people, how it can help people make money, make their dreams, obviously if it's in the regulated side of things with their own home purchase, or it's using short-term cash for the longer-term project. And whilst people go, oh, it's expensive, my argument to this is it's expensive compared to what?
And if I think that's the other side of the flip of the coin, is that you must spend quite a lot of time educating, say, resi brokers, for instance, who want to come into the market, because if you are a resi broker, it does seem like it's an expensive tool because maybe they haven't grabbed the commercial aspect of it. So I'm sure some of your time, or you can tell me, but especially as the market got tighter with resi, I do see more of our guys looking at commercial, but maybe not being that okay with it. I mean, how do you combat that as well? Obviously, you've got to educate them because they don't want to do a crap job for the customer. I mean, no one does.
Yeah.
At the same time, they might just not understand the market. So you've got to deal with that side of things as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so it's very difficult sometimes because you've got if you're a resi broker doing mortgages, remortgages, etc., they will very rarely get a bridging opportunity. Okay, it generally comes up with, and it is an auction purchase, or it is someone that wants to purchase the property, but it's unmortgageable by the high street. They'll put a retention on it or something like that. It needs kitchens, bathrooms, that sort of thing. So it's the education there. They're the ones where you've got to kiss a lot of frogs, as I say to my guys, because they might get one inquiry a month, one inquiry a quarter. But what we've found, certainly throughout the periods, is those resi brokers will either just simply give that business away to a master broker, or B, if they're part of a large organisation, they'll have specialist brokers within that firm who deal with it. Like Savills is a classic example. That, I mean, they've been doing it years, but Savills, years and years ago, everyone did their own little bit, and it wasn't really cohesive. And then again, 10 years ago or something, they started Savills Private Finance in the bridging department. They had a bridging department of 2 or 3, and that's grown and grown and grown. And a lot of the larger John Charcoals, for example, that was another good one where they have a large sort of department within the firm that deals specifically with bridging, commercial development.
And any of the it's very hard to dip your toe into because there's so much criteria. Like you can't, and if you're dipping your toe in it once a quarter, you haven't got the relationship. You don't know the 240 lenders. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult to It's
Yeah.
difficult to do the right thing by the customer.
Yeah, so the resi guys, they're very much used to sort of tri-goal mortgage brain. You know, you input details and it comes up with a list of 10 or 15 lenders that you can take that mortgage with. I think there is one or two, Brickflow's quite a good one actually, sort of sourcing system type things.
Yeah.
But the thing with bridging is it is so unique. Every single deal is different. You know, the vast majority of bridging loans aren't paid for monthly either. So it's all about retained or rolled interest. Then it's the education of the difference between retained and rolled interest, or it's part payment, part repayment. It's how interest is calculated. It's the loan to values and the arrangement fees and how they're utilised on the loan as well. So there's an awful lot more to it than just putting some details in a spreadsheet, if you will, and it coming up with some answers. It's very difficult to exist. So that's where you have the specialists who know. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned 240 bridging lenders. I mean, goodness me, that's an inordinate amount of lenders.
Obviously, some of those are very small, 2 or 3 man bands with their cash. But even the middle market is you know, there's a lot of people trying to lend money, isn't there?
Well, if you think, you know, I mean, let's say there's, I don't know, 50 to 100, what I'd say, you know, you know, not their own money, not two guys lending their own money, for example, the proper bridging lenders. It's knowing their criteria, but also knowing their appetite, and that's the difference I touched on earlier. The education is, you know, we've got criteria. It's on the website. You can have a look at it, and it tells you what we do. Where, for example, you know, we've done loans where we don't need a valuation. You know, up to sort of 30-odd%. If it's like, oh, I need 100 grand on a property worth 3 million quid, we'll just send an asset manager out. Yeah. But nowhere on our website does it say that. You know, we don't require PGs on some loans. Again, it doesn't say that anywhere on the website. So it's up to the BDM of the company to go out and educate the broker the little idiosyncrasies of what we can do and what we can't do, if that makes sense. Where do we, you know, go against the criteria where we can? And that's appetite, and that's something you just know by talking to people.
Yeah. Then you mentioned then Brickflow, obviously. Do you think things like that are educating? I think it's a useful tool anyway, but especially for people that are coming into the market and haven't got kind of, maybe don't know where to start. Are those sort of things useful? They're helping you guys sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get quite a bit through Brickflow. You know the guys there. It's a good company, certainly. That, you know, I think it's just only going to grow and get bigger.
The benefit of tech, isn't it? The benefit of tech is it's the worst it's ever going to be. So it's
exactly. Yeah. It's always going to get better. Certainly with AI, you know, whatever they're going to do to utilize AI within that side of things is as good as the information that you put in.
Yeah.
But I'll keep coming back to it. And everyone will be the same. There are some loans that when it all comes in and it's a borderline case because of an inordinate amount of reasons, it's generally up to 1 or 2 people who then look at that deal and go, no, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm sorry, but it's not one for us. Or I've had a look at this, you know, because the property is in a good area, because the customer has a good net asset value, because he's had experience in this before, yes, we will look to do X.
You think that is the reason why commercial won't get taken over by AI anytime soon? Because there's so many variables. It's not like a vanilla mortgage where Doris needs a lowest rate she possibly can. There's so many different variables to commercial, isn't there, and specialists and that kind of thing. I just cannot envisage you not needing a broker, a BDM, you know, a really experienced underwriter without any kind of. I'm not saying it won't ever happen. I'm just saying I think we're miles off when it comes to AI assists us, right? I don't think it can take over for those sort of deals.
I mean, we've had some guys in this year. Part of our project at the start of the year was to see how AI can be utilised within Octane to make the process better. Okay, So we've looked at certain things. We started looking at certain things a bit deeper still. And a quick example is valuation reports. So your standard valuation report is 50, 60, 70 pages long. And it takes someone a good 20 minutes, half hour to read through that. If you could utilize AI to scan that document in a second and then pull out the salient points of that document that you basically need to make your decisions into, say, a one-pager, for example, then that saves 20 minutes, half an hour per case. If you're in, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 cases a month, or you're looking at 50 valuations a month, maybe more, well, that's an awful lot of time that you're saving by using AI. Do you know what I mean? So that's
someone's still got to sign that off, though, right? Because someone's still got to sign off a 50-page valuation on a one-page document. This
is my sort of argument against AI, because for all that AI can extrapolate that information, as a lender, if you're lending £1 million,
a lot of dough on a one-page,
you're kind of gonna, sorry, but you're gonna want to read that 50-page valuation report, aren't you?
I just think it's only going to take one mistake, isn't it? And it's the same with, I think it's the same with legal and the like, isn't it? Reduce stuff down, but then you can't actually, the lawyers won't sign it off because they don't trust that it's looked through it. So you've got the same problem of humans actually maybe slowing down AI in the sense that we don't trust it enough to, and like you said, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money resting on it if it's wrong. So it's,
I've heard from some other people about the solicitor side of things, and again, they're not trusting AI, and I get it. It's can it be done better, quicker? Yes, of course, but you've got to trust it. And at the moment, it's been around for years, but I think in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, really, it's blossomed. You're now seeing phones, Samsung and Apple with new AI technology and all the rest of it, and that's great for sort of social side of things. But when it's a big money making decision, I think for now it's going to be very much we want to read it properly.
Yeah, makes sense. Good. And I've had you on for longer than I said I would, so I appreciate your time. But I've got some more questions. So I'm just going to keep going on. But on the business development side,
go for it, mate. Go for it.
I know I'm really interested in this guy. I knew you mentioned earlier that your sales team is from early 30s, so you may not have as much of input on this, but we're really looking into it at the moment. We're trying to build a kind of white paper on it about how we motivate Gen Z, because they're the next people. Because we talk about this in the past as well. There is a skill shortage in the market, and it's going to become more apparent like next year and onwards, hopefully, when the market gets busier and busier. But how do you go about thinking about, because they're motivated very different from where we were, and there's nothing we can, and unfortunately we're the dinosaurs. We are going to have to change for them. They're not going to suddenly turn into us. What do we have to think about when we're kind of in that next evolution of recruiting when it comes to the Gen Z people who, like I said, are just very, 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 very different to us in the way they are motivated, and very different to what they want, and and how they kind of lean on you as a manager. What do you think there? Well, I was going to say, what's the secret? But that's if we knew that.
Well, yeah, if we knew that, we'd be millionaires. I think, again, really good question. For me, motivation comes in different levels, and as I say, for the younger generation coming through, that motivation might be time. You can't buy time, so it might be more holiday. It might be more flexible working. It might be benefits linked to the role, such as healthcare.
I think this is where the disconnect is, though, because that hours put in as a BDM is what makes good results, or quality hours put in as a BDM. But if the next generation's big thing is spending more time at home, there's a disconnect between the jobs we have right now and the jobs they want.
Yeah,
I don't know how that gap is filled, and I'm intrigued by it because I listen to it every day.
Yeah, and do you know what? I've interviewed a lot of people, Marcus, that, and a lot of them for me, and it has been the younger people as well, but also people our age. It's I don't want to go out and about. Okay, I don't want to get in the car. I don't want to do 5 days a week on the road. I want to work in the comfort of my own home. Now, certain jobs, certain tasks, even in the BDM role, are more than capable of doing at home. And if you're at home, so you pick up the kids, take the dogs for a walk, etc., absolutely crack on. But there are certain jobs that are intrinsically linked to going out and doing, miles on the road or miles in the train. And a relationship-based sales job is that. I can't, I in our small part of this finance industry, I can't see, going above that being any different. How you motivate someone, whether it is, as I say, financial. I'm old school. I'm financially motivated. Right? You go out, you do, 15 appointments a week, and you sell 100 widgets a week, you'll get X. Well, I'll go, okay, well, I want X, Y, and Z. So I'll go and do 20 appointments and sell 150 widgets because I want more money. Money motivates me, has done all my life, and probably will to the day I die. If it's something like I want to spend more time at home, I want to, pick my kids up from school and see whatever else, then, being blunt, then maybe a field-based sales role. Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about thinking of the kids and stuff. I see a lot of the Gen Z stuff is more about how they're made to feel. You know what I mean? I think whereas you would probably take a bit of a bollocking if you made more money, but it's more about how they're rewarded, like emotionally. I think it's probably the big shift in how people.
Do you know what? I had an instance like that with my kids just as they'd gone back to school, and I was delighted to hear one of my children say that they're really loving college because they get that a certain warmth out of doing a good job. Okay, nice. So I was like, oh, brilliant, and he said, I want to do more stuff, I want to build more stuff, and all the rest of it. So I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. And there's not sometimes it's as good as saying, thanks for doing a really good job, or I really appreciate what you've done there, coming from an old relic like me, because you just kind of want that pat on the back. And again, that might be an old-fashioned phrase, but sometimes if someone says to me, that's a really good job, Rich, or thanks for doing that, or well done, that means as much as someone giving you a few extra quid in your pay packet because you think I feel valued.
Yeah.
And I think that's I'm a lot older than these people coming through the ranks.
Maybe it hasn't changed that much. Maybe we're just wording it different because we all want a pat on the back. Maybe it's just
I think being valued and wanted is, well, it's a fundamental human trait, isn't it? No one wants to be, people sometimes choose to be out on the periphery of society with how they are and how they dress and what they say and all the rest of it, because I think, I want to be different from the crowd. But doesn't everyone want to have that thanks, that pat on the back, or that glow of, oh, I've done a good job, I'm happy that I've made someone else happy? And I think that's a fundamental human trait of sales. You go out and sell that widget and you come back and you tell the boss you've sold it. If it's sort of your target, part of me when I'm being very cynical with my guys, I say, oh, thanks for doing your job. That's what I pay you to do.
That's kind of how I feel sometimes. I'm not overly needing to do pats on the back, but having said that, I've still got an ego. I like to know that people trust you as an authority, or you've done a good job for someone. So I suppose it's the same. Maybe just kind of worded differently.
Yeah, and I think again, it's going back to the early part of the conversation about relationships, where if you've got a good relationship with someone, then what is it that kind of floats their boat, as it were? Do they like thanks, or do they just go, oh, don't worry about it, I'm just cracking on, it's my job? But sometimes I go, no, hold on a minute, because you did a good job there. This is why you did a good job and how you did a good job. And I think that's over and above what you've done, or you've never done that before, or that's something I've seen you've improved upon. And suddenly they might have a little 5 minutes to go, do you know what? Yeah, that's actually, I have worked hard on that, or I did try really hard to get in with this firm and I've got a reward from it. So it's that relationship, knowing what buttons to press, what motivates them again.
Yeah, nice, good. Like I said, I've taken you for way longer than I said I would. But if anyone wants to get hold of you, Rich, what's the best way they can speak to you or one of your guys about, whether it's about Octane as a whole, or just generally catching up with you in the market? I know you're very open to speaking to people, but what's the best way to get hold of you?
Best way is always phone, and my details are on the website, octanecapital.co.uk.
And obviously, all of your socials will be on our socials when this goes out as well. So if anyone doesn't, it's going to be on ours. But
perfect. LinkedIn obviously is great as well. I'm often out and about with the team, and we do quite a lot of the shows. So the MBEs and the FP shows and the landlord shows and financial reporters. So yeah, if anyone wants to grab me, just feel free. I'm very open to a coffee and late in the afternoon cold lager.
and genuinely you are, like I said, I've gotten on with you because you were very open about how you do business and how you lead and that kind of thing. And so to get you on, but really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you very much, everyone listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks, Rich.